Hi everyone, my name is Nicole Iacono. I'm the Marketing Events Manager at Nielsen Visual IQ. On behalf of the entire Nielsen Visual IQ team, it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar, Marketing Attribution, Giving Agencies the Power to Keep Their Media Performance Promises. I have a little housekeeping before we begin. We'll be recording the webinar and making it available to everyone who registered. Also, we will take your questions during a Q&A session at the end, but you can submit them at any time using the webinar interface. So please send them in as you think of them. And now I'd like to introduce today's presenter, Kevin Keane, VP of Channel Alliances at Nielsen Visual IQ. Kevin will be providing you an overview of marketing attribution and will discuss the important role it plays in helping you, as an agency, optimize your clients' marketing and media investments to drive the online and offline success metrics that they care most about. Without further ado, Kevin, you may begin.
Thanks, Nicole, and thank you to all of you joining today. We really appreciate it. And Nicole, I think you summed it up well, the role that attribution plays. It's an important topic, one near and dear to us at Nielsen Visual IQ. So happy to be discussing it with you today. When we were thinking about this session, and as you can imagine, we speak with many agencies in the course of our work, one theme comes up consistently is that knowing what is working is the key to delivering results for clients. But this is increasingly complicated. And for you as an agency, just knowing what solutions are available to be able to tackle this issue, how they may fit with clients who have different media strategies, different business goals, and then the specific activities that are involved in making them work for you so that you can get them set up and operational, and then use solutions to drive meaningful improvements to your clients' media plans. So we're going to try to shed some light on all of this today. And what we thought would be helpful was to frame this around why marketing attribution matters, although I think we've already touched on that a bit. We'll talk to you about the solutions that Nielsen offers for varying situations. And then we'd like to get into specifically how we support agencies so that if you're involved in different situations and we show up, or you think we are relevant, all of the different ways we're set up to support you and to engage. And as Nicole mentioned, we're happy to take questions, which feel free to start to fire those in as they occur to you today. So why this matters, and I think it's likely that if you signed up for this webinar and are attending or listening afterward, that you have a sense that this is an important topic or have been involved in trying to tackle this with clients. But we just released last week a really interesting CMO study. There's a lot of additional research and anecdotes on this, but our study pointed out that over 70% of CMOs feel a lack of confidence in their digital measurement, and yet over 80% are significantly stepping up spend in digital. So that gap, that difference, I think has led to a lot of interest in how can we step up our game in terms of being able to confidently measure media ROI. And if you look at this from the perspective of an agency, clients are coming to their agency partners in a couple of different ways. They're expecting them perhaps to advise on how to use attribution solutions to drive results in general, or to recommend specific solutions, so to have some knowledge of what the different options are, what the different industry players are offering, or, and this is a common way for us to engage since we've been involved in marketing attribution for over a decade, first as Visual IQ, now as part of Nielsen. We'll have clients that have already adopted or implemented the solution and then are asking their agency partners to get involved, learn how to use the solutions, learn how they work, and help support their use of attribution. And so that's the inbound side, but as well, progressive agencies are looking to be proactive with clients and educate them on what's possible, point out that some of the possible misconceptions they have about what's important, what's driving results in media may be addressed by having better technology, better attribution solutions. And over the last year or so, we've been working on making it possible for our agency partners to bundle attribution solutions into the services they're providing to clients. So again, we'll talk about all of this in terms of the different options for how we, Nielsen Visual IQ, work with agencies. This next slide, really a cartoon just depicting the attribution challenge. So on the left-hand side, the consumer. On the right-hand side, an outcome, a conversion event that we're investing media to try to help influence and drive. And in this cartoon, you see that the media, no surprise to anyone on this call, can be digital and individually addressable and trackable, or there may be challenges with tracking certain digital formats. It may be offline media that is not individually addressable and it is more challenging to track. So quite a conundrum, a number of different influences, all leading hopefully to a desired outcome. But the challenge that we're trying to help address is making sense of this and ascribing credit to the various media touches toward important business KPIs. And if you look at this from a traditional standpoint of the advertiser is looking to reach customers using a variety of media channels, digital and traditional. And then the performance measurement can vary pretty significantly depending on the channel. So the data that's available, whether it's summarized regional data or whether it's individually identifiable data, the measurement, the availability of that data, and then therefore the measurement cadence can be anywhere from an annual planning process down to a daily or even real-time optimization. And finally, the decision-making, whether it is a strategic goal that you have to determine an optimal allocation by channel and goals, performance goals by channel, or whether it's much more tactical, like every day, how am I going to make changes to my media plan to improve and to drive results. And so there's quite a variety of opportunities, a variety of data sets, and I think we believe that it's not possible to handle this with one all-encompassing model, but rather there are different techniques to try to tackle this depending on the data and particularly the strategic goals. Just a bit of a double click on that. If you break down traditional channels, digital channels, and hybrid channels like email that are individually addressable but offline, you see the data, again, we focus quite a bit on whether it is individually addressable, whether the measurement goals are around a planning process or daily, and also whether the outcomes that are being measured tend to be broader outcome sales or brand effect, or whether there are multiple outcomes around engagement and purchase effect and so on up and down the funnel. So we really just wanted to frame this because what we understand is that when clients are asking agencies about attribution, it can mean many different things, and it may take different technology solutions and different techniques to solve for what you're trying to solve for. And this framework, I think, is helpful in picking that apart a bit. So at Nielsen Visual IQ, we've put together really 3 different solution offerings that interoperate and help to tackle each of these challenges. So for the individually addressable digital channels, our multi-touch attribution solution, SaaS-based, always-on solutions that support a very turnaround time and are ideal for digital channels and providing very granular insights. We can overlay TV, which is not at scale anyway. There are examples of TV being individually addressable, but broadly speaking, TV at scale is still household or DMA addressable. And so we're able to look at the impact TV is having on a digital baseline through our TV attribution solution. And that can be very useful in optimizing buys and provide some insights into how TV is helping to influence the overall marketing mix. And then for the broadest possible understanding of the role each media vehicle is playing in driving business performance, and for sweeping in all of the offline channels and supporting strategic decisions, marketing mix modeling. So these are all different Nielsen offerings that we can talk to you about and help with. Sometimes it's helpful to think about how these offerings come together in a workflow. So it's very common for, from a Visual IQ perspective, to step in and find that maybe there's an existing media mix model that's been developed, or maybe for us to be starting with an exercise to establish investment priorities by channel and produce quarterly plans and an annual plan. But once you've determined your investment in digital, for instance, there's not the granularity that makes it directly and inherently actionable. So you may decide you're going to spend a certain amount in social, but that's not going to be broken down by publisher. And it's certainly not going to be broken down by each of the different creative messages and vehicles and so on. So you start to see in this illustration that there is a real need to be able to be effective in the digital channel, to be working at this level of granularity. So there's a natural handoff from the planning process, the strategic planning process, to the tactical, everyday optimization that's occurring. And from a solution standpoint, we'll move the goals, both the budget allocation and the channel performance goals, from one environment to the other, so you can now, as you're operating in the digital world, start to see how that is related to your overall plan. And finally, TV. By the way, each of these from Nielsen Visual IQ is a modular, optional solution. If TV is an important part of the mix, that would as well be addressed in MMN and budgets and goals established, but then maybe managed at a more rapid cadence with our TV attribution solution. So that's really a workflow lens. Again, the challenge being that there are multiple different vehicles, multiple different strategic and planning objectives, and different opportunities to measure and manage each of the different media opportunities. So now we'll just turn to what we hear clients looking for, particularly when they're zooming in, maybe zooming past marketing mix and starting to look at attribution. And ideally, they would like a solution that can deduplicate consumers across channels and devices. Because look, everybody's got the ability to look at channels in isolation, but that doesn't give you the insight as to how the channels are working together, lining up in a customer journey, and influencing outcomes. So the ideal solution will deduplicate consumers across channels and devices, let you get into different levels of analysis at the individual level or audience level, also allow you to be looking at multiple success criteria, because not every media campaign is designed to produce a buy type outcome. There may be engagement or awareness objectives, and so being able to define multiple outcomes that you care about and have a solution that can be evaluating progress toward all of those concurrently is kind of part of the ideal solution footprint. And lastly, it's one thing to measure media performance and to be tracking it comprehensively, but then to make that actionable and to turn it into meaningful increases in performance or meaningful savings or a combination, being able to move right into scenario planning and analysis and apply different constraints that you have, but start to explore what the impact of shifts would be. Even very tactical changes within the digital portfolio is important. And if you look at the MTA solution from Visual IQ Nielsen, it has four primary functions that are designed to support those requirements. First and foremost, it's a people-based architecture, and we focus on creating a unique individual identifier. That's what the VUID, VUID for short, stands for, the Visual IQ Unique ID, which we build up by capturing interactions. And I have another slide that illustrates how we bring multiple elements together, a first-party and third-party data with what we're able to capture to produce the most accurate, comprehensive view of individuals to base the solution on. Then there is the box number 2, marketing exposures. And the goal of an attribution solution is to be capturing each of the different media exposures that occur at the individual level. And in this cartoon, you'll see the major digital channels, and then underneath a series of attributes that are channel specific, such as display, placement, frequency, creative, size, relevant to the display channel. Each of these elements is configurable by you, such that the analysis that you're looking at in the Visual IQ Nielsen solution, it makes sense to you how you want to look at your media and where you want to contemplate making changes. Also, the benefit of having this unique user ID and the ability to reach out to third-party resources like the Nielsen Marketing Cloud, we're able to link attributes, consumer attributes, to those individuals. This is done anonymously, but we're able to give basic demographic information, audience information, and we get a lot of great feedback that once this solution is set up, it's the first time that media exposure and audience insights are together in a single platform, and you're able to drill down and look at specific audiences, look at the media exposure that's reaching them, and the impact that it's having. Finally, the box number 4, performance. All of the KPIs, and this is just an illustration, but kind of top of funnel to bottom here, these are as well configurable by you and designed to help you get at the outcomes that are important in your media investments. These are the primary elements of the Visual IQ platform that's always on, collecting data at the individual level with the relevant detail. A little bit more on the user identification strategy. I mentioned that it's there's a Visual IQ pixel that is able to collect cross-channel data. We're also able to leverage first-party data, loyalty IDs, customer IDs, that are able to be captured and help us to withstand things like cookie deletion and changes. And finally, a very robust set of third-party integrations that handle cross-device. So we're integrated with the device graph to link relevant, or make the connections rather between mobile and desktop devices. For instance, we have a Facebook partnership which enables us to bring in impression level data that's not able to be tracked via Pixel, and there are other instances of that. So all of these elements come together in our Visual IQ user ID strategy. From an agency perspective, this tends to involve the agency getting involved in tagging all of the media that's being put in market. That enables us to track clicks and impressions. And then for media that's non-taggable, we have a site tag that just lives on the landing pages and parses out URL parameters in order to determine what is coming in and get it into the correct category. Well, all of which puts us in a position to create this customer journey, so we can, at the individual level, begin to relate each of these different media exposures and the specific media attributes relevant to each exposure. Now, the reason that we want to do this, or one of the most useful next step once this is available, and the KPI, by the way, on the right-hand side, is there are different techniques for attributing value to each of the exposures. Now, there are traditional or subjective rules-based techniques, and many systems today are based on a last touch analysis. The last exposure gets all the credit for the conversion, but we support the ability to establish different rules in the platform if you are looking to maybe shift credit across the customer journey. We also have what we call our enhanced algorithmic option, which looks at different rules assignments that you can make and uses a data-driven technique to determine which set of rules is most predictive of performance. So we can give you input on rules, and that's still quite helpful in making the attribution more data-driven and letting you understand at the channel and sub-channel level relative contribution. But our flagship offering is this true attribution, and this is a much more sophisticated multi-dimensional modeling, and it is operating at the level of those granular media attributes and looking at how exposure to each attribute in isolation and in combination is contributing toward an outcome. This is something that we feel really differentiates Visual IQ as a provider, and something that gives you insights right down to the granular level that is relevant to the changes you'll be making in your media plan. And just to depict that, again, the consumer journey, the KPI on the right-hand side, and the algorithm is generating some fractional credit for each exposure toward the realization of the outcome. With true attribution, it's right down to the granular media attribute level. These models are validated as we produce them, highly accurate. We're typically seeing model accuracy in the 90 to 95% range, predictive accuracy of these models. So now I'll just turn a little bit to the breadth of clients that we work with. And now as part of Nielsen, we cover essentially every major vertical market. CPG, for instance, beauty, restaurant are markets that have been core strengths of Nielsen traditionally, and where some of the MMM offerings are very strong. Many of these other tech, retail, telecom, travel and hospitality, automotive are key markets for Visual IQ. So together, I think gives us a very strong combined footprint. Zeroing in a little bit more on the digital multi-touch attribution solutions, we've got some incredible logos and client experience. Almost every one of these involves some level of collaboration with agency partners or has been agency-led, which is exciting. But they all tend to have very measurable results, whether it's increasing performance or decreasing cost or some combination. And of course, these things can feed each other. If you find cost savings opportunities, reinvest, and then generate incremental results, there can be a cumulative impact on performance. We wanted to share a more specific case study that's just representative of how we work with agency partners and common issues that are addressed. And in this case, working with our partner, DAC Group, on the taxpayer client, the CMO was very skeptical of the investments in display advertising. These upper funnel tactics tend to be eclipsed by more performance-oriented results and last click metrics that you're seeing. So their contribution can kind of disappear, and the agency was looking for a way to really make the case, to be able to understand and defend the investments and allocate them appropriately. And by working together, by setting up the Visual IQ platform, by understanding each of the media touches contributing to conversion, we were able to quickly demonstrate that display had a significantly lower than expected CPA, and that it was a key top of funnel tactic in their media mix. So there are many, many other use cases that involve finding frequency capping opportunities, finding more granular opportunities to shift investments to focus on specific messages that resonate with specific audiences. There's always a proliferation of different size opportunities, and some work better than others. And as new items crop up, being able to get a very quick read on those. These are all more detailed examples, and this is just think representative of a common finding that upper funnel tactics may be undervalued. In every case, we kind of recommend a workflow that starts with looking at the true metrics, the results that we're gathering on marketing performance, using that to drop into a more detailed planning process and exploring possible reallocation of investments. We have a bunch of optimization tools that can help you predict what the cost savings or what the performance increases be, applying relevant constraints by channel. And then we can generate very granular recommendations. We have direct integrations to over 40 programmatic buying platforms. So when that's relevant, these recommendations can be flowing typically on a daily basis to the programmatic platforms, so that instead of buying off of more antiquated last touch metrics, they can now buy off of our fractionally attributed metrics. And of course, these are available for any type of analysis and reporting and changes that you would make. As changes are made, you go back into a review of how are things performing and where can we further optimize. So that's the overview, I think, of the solution. Why don't we turn to the part of the agenda where we discuss how we partner with agencies, our goal being to educate you on what's available and enable and empower you if you're working with our solutions. So over the entire history of Visual IQ, every advertiser that has elected to work with us and set up the platform has wanted their media agency and other agency partners involved. And we've welcomed that. It's incredibly important to be able to get the tracking set up and to be able to make sense of the insights and to take action based on what the attributed metrics are telling you. And to support that, we have, over a number of years, developed a very robust training and certification program that we make available to agency partners. So you can achieve certification. There are training courses. There are tests to validate the learning. So it's very common for new users to take that training, take the certification tests. We have, in addition to the formal training, we've got a number of extra credit tracks that get into deeper solution architecture, that get into high value use cases and how to tackle those for clients. So it's a great program and something we get a lot of positive feedback on. And we have over 1,000 users that have participated in this across many, many different agency partners, large and small. And those programs tend to come into play when an advertiser has selected Nielsen Visual IQ. But for an agency that's maybe thinking about how do we begin to start a dialogue with clients or respond to clients asking about attribution, we have programs to enable teaming around larger advertisers, and also programs to empower you to embed the technology into your service offerings or some combination. And so what that really looks like in terms of the type of training and market development resources we have a new market development training track that we can offer that explains what multi-touch attribution solutions are, how they work, and the types of business challenges that they solve for advertisers and for agencies. We package that with some other information about what's involved in setting these things up and operating them over time. So that's a pretty useful track as maybe you're dipping a toe in the water or you're educating client teams, even in more experienced agencies. Then there's the user certification training that I talked about. That's really where it all started, and where we've had a tremendous amount of engagement with agencies, helping teams use the platform and measure and optimize media programs. And then for those that are using our agency, the agency version of the platform that's geared to self-service and to agencies setting this up, we have an implementation workshop series where we teach you how to set up the platform, how to operate it, and a whole series of playbooks and workshops around best practices and making the most of the platform. So with all of these elements at our disposal, the way we will typically get started is by providing education sessions like this, but also more one-to-one conversations where we will discuss what types of clients and what types of challenges the agency is looking to address. And as we gain a better understanding of that, we can begin to recommend whether the best fit is an enterprise solution for multi-touch attribution or TV or MMM or some combination, or whether it's an agency solution. These tend to be more focused on digital MTA. And again, as we know where to focus, we engage Nielsen resources to support the partnership, whether it's going side by side to talk to large advertisers, or whether it's pulling in teams to work very specifically around how we're enabling the agency to create capabilities of their own. We would respond accordingly. So we're nearing the end of the prepared remarks. Just by way of wrap up, I think Nielsen and Visual IQ, it's a natural fit. We're excited about being part of the world's largest media measurement and performance measurement organization. We think there's a really important role for independent third-party measurement, and something we're committed to help you leverage in your client work. Nielsen in bringing a real strength in MMM, Visual IQ, bringing best-in-class attribution platform, and these increasingly coming together and reinforcing each other. So we're very confident that we'll have something relevant to say if you reach out to us. So with that, I hope this has been helpful in just understanding where we play, the various solutions that we can bring to bear, and some of the ways that we can work with you. With that, let me pause to see if we have any questions on the line.
Great. Thank you so much,
Nicole.
Kevin. As you mentioned, we'll now open it up for questions. So those on the line, please make sure to submit your questions via the Q&A box, which is located in your control panel. So let's see, what do we have here? First one, if different channels are being measured by different KPIs, how can our different teams, internal or external, like our agency, which are you guys, get on the same system for measuring success?
Sure, it's a great question, and kind of interesting that the problem of having different KPIs that are channel specific and hard maybe to compare to each other tends to be one of the key issues that we help address by implementing MTA. So, you may have heard me speak to the opportunity to set up multiple KPIs in the platform. And so, yes, we find there's a lot of value in being able to track multiple KPIs concurrently, and some channels are more geared to upper funnel versus lower funnel, but the solutions are meant to have the same overall set of KPIs and drive that type of alignment, and also to help demonstrate which elements of the media portfolio are contributing and where. And it really is overcoming that challenge of each team having a different way of measuring and having essentially duplicative results, different channels all claiming credit for the same thing. So great question, and one of the key bits of value we bring when we're setting up the MTA solution.
Great. Here's another one. How can a small brand with infrequent investment leverage such an approach without a large investment in a multi-touch attribution solution?
Sure. So I think that may be where the agency specific solutions come into play. So we have, and I think Visual IQ and Nielsen both have been well known for serving the largest, most demanding enterprise clients and have built out really rich capabilities. And those solutions are perhaps out of reach to smaller brands. And that's one of the challenges we set out to tackle by collaborating with agencies and making an agency platform available. So there are economies of scale. When we work with agencies that have multiple clients, we can set them up so that it's easy for them to onboard an initial set of clients at a lower price point than an enterprise solution, and then to add those incrementally at a lower cost. So I think the answer to how can a smaller brand engage, it tends to be by collaborating with an agency that's set up using our agency solution. And that tends to be the best fit with digitally focused agencies that are managing all elements of the digital portfolio. So not maybe just search or not just social or display, but if your remit as an agency is across enough digital channels, this can be a very relevant add-on to your stack.
Great. How are you able to connect mobile devices and tablets into the customer journey?
Great question. I think we addressed earlier that the anchor of the platform is this Visual IQ unique user ID, and we rely on a device graph to be able to relate using device ID the various channels that all roll up to an individual. So we're capturing all these granular interactions, and then as they're absorbed into the platform, we're able to use techniques like the device graph, like cross-device mapping to integrate, and it adds tremendously to being able to connect the dots and to see how media investments are driving outcomes, particularly as those are realized on mobile devices.
Okay. How about, is this a probabilistic model? So what type of model is this that we're using?
Sure. So, in the opening, we discussed this challenge of addressable versus non-addressable media. And so our MMM solutions are more probabilistic in nature, where we don't have the exact tracking, but the beauty of the MTA solutions is they are designed to be entirely deterministic. So we work only on attributable conversions that are actually captured and able to be resolved to the individuals. So the answer, I guess, depends on which solution we're talking about, but that's really the reason that we have different solutions, is we can be very precise and very accurate with the MTA solutions using purely deterministic methods. And then we rely on more probabilistic modeling techniques to look more broadly across the portfolio and sweep in the non-addressable impact.
Great. Can you talk about what some of the biggest challenges are in implementation, and how long does it take for clients to start seeing results?
Sure. We've done a bunch of things to really prioritize getting data collection going. It's important that if you make the decision to move with this, that quickly and comprehensively get the media that you're putting in market tagged up. Sometimes it can be a bit of a process to get a client to tag their site. We can work with container tags and tag management platforms to move that quickly, and we do all of the logic on our side. So it's not really a drain, but sometimes just the folks that need to get involved in that piece of it can take a little bit of time. But it's not uncommon to be able to get data collection going in a matter of days and weeks. And then we typically recommend that you take a little time to allow data to accumulate in the platform. You're double checking and kind of QAing that everything is matching up. You're looking for situations where we're finding conversions that we can't tie to an individual and trying to understand if those maybe mean that certain media assets haven't been tagged, or there are other changes that we can make. But over the course of the first few weeks, we're getting data collection going. Over the first month, we're accumulating enough data in the platform so that now, as you look at the dashboards and begin to observe things about the customer journey and get those first insights, you have everything you need to do that. So there are other thresholds that make the modeling more relevant and complete, but within about 30 days of collecting data, you're getting very useful observational insights and your first modeled insights. And then by the time you get to having 90 days of data in the platform, and having enough of a critical mass of impressions and conversions, you're really able to be very effective.
Fantastic. Well, we are approaching the end of the webinar. If we did not cover your question during the Q&A, we will certainly respond to you individually by email. With that, I'd like to thank Kevin for the presentation and to everyone on the line for participating today. A recording of the webinar will be sent to everyone via email. And thank you once again for your participation, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.